Good morning, Muskegon, to all of you out there in radio, podcast, iHeartRadio, and computer land. This is On Muskegon, and I'm Jim Riley here in Muskegon's Clear Channel Studios with my friend, the engineer, the legendary, the man who put the O in radio, Oscar Osbo.
Now we're going deep.
There he goes. Oscar runs the show. I just sit here once in a while and tell him what a wonderful guy he is. And hey, back helping us out. A familiar face and voice to many in Muskegon, helping us in Muskegon's most fair and balanced political conversation, is Muskegon Community College trustee and now new TV host, Sean Mullally. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Jim.
Hey, we'll talk about what's going on today, but I just recently found out that you were competing with me in another media here as a radio or TV host. Tell me a little bit about your show.
Well, different media outlet. I'll leave the AM radio for you, and I'll take the cable TV channels.
But plus we give you AM here, and internet. But yeah, tell me about your show. I'm sure everybody wants to know about
Muskegon in Motion. We've been on for a couple months now on MCC TV, which is carried on Comcast and Charter cable subscribers throughout Muskegon, all of Muskegon County, Ottawa County, and parts of some of the adjacent counties. And it's a half-hour show. We come out with a new episode roughly monthly, and we cover interesting things going on in and around Muskegon. We keep the topics fairly broad and general interest, but it was the reason I thought to get into that is because we don't have a large commercial TV station in Muskegon. We rely on a lot of Grand Rapids coverage. So to get something in that medium that is locally generated and covers local issues, much like you do on the radio, I think is important.
Okay, so it's an interview show, and give me some. Let's say talk Comcast first. Give me times and places on the Comcast dialer.
It runs 5:30 and 8:30 p.m. on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays.
Okay. And what channel would you find it on Comcast?
Comcast channel 97.
Okay.
It also runs on a couple of other very high-numbered channels with their new digital system.
Sure.
And I don't remember the Charter station number off the top of my head. I'm not a Charter subscriber, so I don't use it frequently. Yeah. But all the times and the station numbers are all listed on MCC's website.
And you said you're on Sunday, Tuesday,
and Thursday.
So you're not going to compete with our. I would imagine on television we've got to be close to #1 rated television show on Monday nights at prime time.
It's like the only show local.
When Muskegon when our show is
because we're only on Comcast, but we are on antennas, so they can actually put some rabbit ears up.
That's right,
and watch us too.
Exactly. So
I watch the rabbit ears in Whitehall, believe it or not. So
and we are on Monday nights from 8 to 9:30. So great. Well, good. I think this is important, and I very much welcome your show. Remind me afterwards. We'll get a link onto the ionmuskegon.com website, and who knows? Maybe you'll end up seeing me on the show, burbling about
he's already inviting himself.
What I burble. Well, I wasn't going to get invited otherwise. So the only way to do it is publicly.
That's right.
To really press.
Can I get on your show?
Press the envelope.
As long as you bring the amazingly photogenic shirt.
You got to watch the show. Now, our show, of course, you can listen to it later in the day on ionmuskegon.com, but we will be on primetime television Monday nights. From 8 to 9:30 on Comcast channel 397 or Rabbit Ears. But the TV show, which is the video of us doing the show, is usually a week late. So our show that we're doing today, while you can listen to it on the internet later today, will be on a week from Monday. But you got to turn it on if not just for a moment, to check Sean's gorgeous American flag tie. He and I
are doing HD today for that. Just
there
for
we
that
go.
Tie.
It had to be color coordinated,
and he's even he's proven that we are fair and balanced. He's got a political tag on his left shoulder there. Not shoulder? I guess chest. That is, I don't understand the word there. It's,
with the high
lamenting? Are we lamenting things?
With the high def, maybe the viewers can make it out. Colleen Lamont, one of the two candidates running for the 91st House.
There we go. And she's running as a Democrat, running against Holly Hughes. So, okay, enough of that. Hey, this is a big day, certainly for Oscar and myself, and thank you for sharing it with us. Today, On Muskegon celebrates the beginning, day one of its second year on the radio here in Muskegon County. And beyond, as we well know. But thank you, listeners. Thank you, all the various guests. Certainly thanks to Oscar. And Sean, thank you for being with us to celebrate in our typically subdued way.
Well, congratulations on the landmark.
But thank you. And they said it would not continue on. And, of course, and here we go. And, yes. So we'll
charge on.
We'll take it from there, and if we keep on this, we will lose our listenership. So let's get on to the things that really do matter here, and I think as we've said before, we are Muskegon's. They're certainly on the radio now, and now we're being joined, but we're one of the very few media outlets providing live political face-to-face, and in particular focusing on Muskegon County and West Michigan. And even if you don't live here in gorgeous West Michigan, my golly, what a summer we've had. But the same playbook, the same template that we endeavor to expose to all of you so that you understand what's going on is repeatedly used by the politicians, their crony capitalist insider friends, the unions, and the fast disappearing newspapers, and the rest of the lapdog media to enrich the powerful at the expense of the rest of us everywhere in the country. And I know that Sean and I think would agree that we may not agree that there's this 1% and 99%, but there certainly are people who are utilizing the system, be it in private enterprise, but corporations, the Goldman Sachses of the world, or in politics. They're enriching themselves at the expense of the rest of us. So our intent is to focus on that in our second year, as we did in the first year, and to let you know what's going on out there. And we do want feedback. And we are a call-in show, and the phone number is 231-830-3109. We do have a guest coming in at 9 o'clock, so don't call from 9 to about 9:30. But we do want to get you on the radio. If you got a question, certainly give us a buzz at 830-3109. And one of the things I like to start out with, because I think history is critically important when we are all human beings, and we were essentially the same kind of human being 100 years and 200 years and 300 years ago, and we tend to make the same good judgments, good decisions, and we also tend to make the same bad decisions. So I like to look at a little history here. And on this day in 1620, many years ago, the Mayflower departed from Plymouth, England, and amazingly, it arrived on November 21st. So it was a couple of months, a little more than 2 months in that itty bitty boat on the Atlantic Ocean.
Now, that's quite a coincidence. They left Plymouth, England, and they landed on Plymouth Rock, both with the same name.
Well, I think they named it Plymouth Rock. Perhaps had they left from Muskegon, England, we might be talking about Muskegon Rock today. But yes, they arrived in Provincetown, Massachusetts, and then at Plymouth on the 26th. So, but 102 passengers. It was the beginning of what ultimately is the grand experiment in the United States. These folks wanted not just religious freedom; they wanted freedom from government, and that's in essence what we are in this country today. As we certainly on this radio show, as we try to fight back a little bit of the creep of the expansion of government that comes from both parties. By the way, certainly it's frightening to look at the George Bush years in terms of the growth of government, and certainly what we've seen in the last almost 4 years under President Obama. He has accelerated that growth.
Interesting note. You mentioned the Mayflower, and I've got some people in my family that are into genealogy, and like many Americans, the way things work, I can trace back to an ancestor that was on the Mayflower.
Oh, my golly.
Actually fell overboard on the way over and nearly drowned. They had to throw him a big long rope and managed to pull him back.
Oh, they
in
brought
the
him
boat.
back. Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Really, was his name Homer? Or-
Yeah. Well,
That would sound right.
I don't know if the Mayflower has been here ever. We've had so many really great tall ships that have pulled into various ports over the years. Yeah. But I do know that it wasn't just a few years ago. The Nina from Columbus's Nina Pinta and Santa Maria was in.
That was nice.
In port.
That was really neat to tour.
It was, well, I didn't tour it, unfortunately, but I did pull our boat up to it and looked at it closely, and holy moly.
Well, just watching it come in was amazing to me. Yeah.
And how small it is, and how ungainly, how tall and everything. Anyway, those folks, on this day in history, 1620. Okay, also, and this is kind of in the how did that work out for you area. In 1915, Haiti became a U.S. protectorate, and the poor folks in Haiti certainly did not benefit during the time as a protectorate. They most certainly have not benefited as an independent country. We keep pouring money in essentially to support the dictators who are running that country and really making lives miserable. It would be nice if the people in this country, Republican, Democrat, and worldwide, would be interested in places like Haiti and Somalia and others, North Korea. They're really not. They use those areas as a wedge to get money, to pry money from those who have it, to give it to those who will continue the horror of those countries. And I think it's an awful thing. Also, in history, and another one of those, how did that work out for you? This may work out very well either for Governor Romney or President Obama. On this day in 1908, General Motors was founded by Billy Durant, the legendary Billy Durant. Anybody know what the two companies were that merged to ultimately form back in 1908 General Motors? They're companies you've heard of.
Over the years, I know it's been a lot more than two, but the two original ones, I don't know.
Well, I didn't know this either, so don't feel badly. But the two are Buick and Oldsmobile. Only one of which still has little stickers or little emblems on the cars, but Buick and Olds were the two originally back in 1908. Hey, and TV, I found this, I just found this interesting. This is, of course, September, and in the old days, all the shows would be coming out for the first time in September. It's a little different today, but see if you can come up with the years. The Outer Limits premiered. Got an idea on time?
There was the first one that was black and white, and there was a reprisal that was color. That was, I believe, in the early 90s.
Well, this would have been the first one,
which
was before my days.
61 or with it
63? Yeah, 63, pretty close. Okay, and these are all somewhat. Well, I guess I can't say they're that close. Bob Newhart would have been the next one.
74.
68.
Wow.
Bob Newhart show.
I was way off there.
And
maybe you'll get some of these into my lifetime here.
And I know.
This isn't helping me.
We're not being fair.
Hey, I'm liking it.
But it's funny with cable television and the like, and with all the ability to repeat. We get a chance to see these. Yeah. Another one and this is back in the day when the variety shows were huge, but the Dean Martin show.
Oh yeah, I used to watch that. So I was quite young. So that would have to be in the early 60s.
Oh God, your memory's totally gone. 72.
Really?
At least according to my data here, which I have found isn't always 100% accurate. But anyway, but this may have
I was still young.
This might be one of the markers where our society took a massive step, or at least maybe not massive at the time, but I think massive decline. Today, in and I don't have the time on this, the date. 1968. Nope, I'm sorry, I don't. Somehow I misset the date, which is actually the most important part of the story here. No, it was 1968. Mm-hmm. The last show of the Andy Griffith Show, the last episode, and we've decided that kind of family, even though it was interestingly a single dad, but that kind of family and father, wise father, that was garbage. We need now to portray fathers as imbecilic.
Now it's all Homer Simpson.
Well, it's even worse on the sitcoms. But anyway, 1968. Say goodbye to Andy. and say goodbye to us for just a few minutes because we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Sheriff John Brown come for you?
Call Bad Boys Bail Bonds. Open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll free 866-728-6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now, 866-728-6400. Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops, or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it. You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
Oh, they got their hands in every pocket of our clothes. That is the truth. I came back yesterday from East Lansing. I didn't get a chance to go to the Michigan State Notre Dame football game, thank God. But I had friends in from out of town, and we walked around town, and it was just a gala atmosphere, and of course, one of the nicest days in real that you could ever imagine for a football game or any event, and certainly Irish festival here in Muskegon. But it occurred to me, and we were talking about this. These folks were from the East Coast, and they had their one of their sons and 3 of his friends, and they're all mid to late 20s, extraordinarily successful young men. At different various careers, but very, very successful. They go to the Michigan State game every year. Some are Notre Dame grads, be it here or in South Bend. But we got talking about the success and the boomtown atmosphere of East Lansing. I'm sure Ann Arbor and many of the other college campuses throughout the country. And it occurred to us, I said, well, why is this? Well, because those cities, number one, provide they have a business. The biggest business, of course, in those cities is providing an education, selling the services of an education establishment, and they do it very successfully. But they do it unlike, let's say, a Microsoft or an Eagle Alloy here in Muskegon or a Howmet. They don't create net profits. They've got a business, but they don't create any profits at all. As a matter of fact, they get massive tens of millions of dollars of federal and state monies. So it's one thing so they have a business model that is entirely different from the business model of most other cities in the United States. And if in fact that subsidy were to stop, those cities would just dry up and die.
Well, I think one thing you see, too, and we see it at Muskegon Community College, at pretty much all higher education institutes, is by its nature, it tends to be counter-cyclical with the economy. If you have a depressed job market, more people will then take that opportunity. Well, I can't find a good job right now. I'll go brush up on my skills. I'll go back to school for something. And you see enrollment climb anytime that the job market takes a dip. And there's probably some of that going on at the university level as well.
Well, actually, it's gone beyond the peak. As a matter of fact, one of the very, and we're going to talk about that. By the way, I didn't mention at the 9:00 hour we do have calling in from Chicago a lady, Joy Pullman, who's the managing editor of School Reform News, which is part of the Heartland Institute, which is a conservative think tank based in Chicago. We're going to talk about the Chicago teacher strike, and we're going to talk about what that particular issue, but we're also going to talk about how that issue will affect us here in Michigan, not just at the high school level and the public school level, but perhaps even at the college level. But I saw that Michigan State has a quite well-respected MBA program. I think it's the Broward, I believe they pronounce it, business school. And it's understandably, it's tough to get into. They had a 28% this year, 28% decline in applications. And I think what's happening is that there is an understanding now, sadly, that a college education isn't what it used to be. It used to be if you said, hey, I'm a graduate of whatever college or university, that opened a lot of doors. It doesn't do that any longer. And we're not at the end of, we're not at a year or two into this. We're now a good 4 years, solid 4 years. It began under the Bush administration. But where job growth has been awful now. People were screaming bloody murder when unemployment was at 6.3% under the Bush administration.
And some of the tuition assistance has gone away too. When we first were coming into this, there was more TRA money, more No Worker Left Behind money, and that's when you really saw all-time records. At MCC, we hit an all-time enrollment record, and now we're down from that peak as well. Not the 20+% drop that.
Well, that's not a drop. That's just a drop in applications, but it's not a drop in obviously. Matter of fact, I'm sure that the class was full, but there are an acknowledgement that anything, be it an automobile, or if you're going to go out and if you have unlimited money, you do what essentially what our county commissioners do in looking at the jail. They don't really care about what it costs. They're just looking what's the perfect jail, and then the taxpayers will fund it no matter what. Same thing with an inordinately wealthy person will do the same thing with a vehicle. They'll say, well, maybe should we get a Bentley or a Maserati or whatever, a Lexus or what have you.
Or a Volt.
Or a Chevy Volt. Yeah. You know what? I'm going to just change the subject back to the Volt here just for a second because we were in East Lansing over the weekend, and we're watching. Of course, sports is on ESPN. They were all geeked. All these, especially the young guys, they watch all the time. They're not very political at all. And there was an ad for the Volt, and I'm thinking, here it is, Saturday morning, ESPN. That's expensive ad time. There's an ad for the Volt. They have sold, 8,000, some very small amount of Chevy Volts. They've even, for the second time now, stopped production. But listen to this. The Chevy Volt lease owners, many are who've paid $5,050 to drive a Chevy Volt for 2 years. The Volt costs $89,000 for Chevy to make. They net, when they sell one, they lose over $50,000 a vehicle. And I thought, isn't that wonderful that we bailed them out so that they can use this kind of logic and spending advertising for a vehicle that truly is destructive to the future of all of those union and non-union employees at General Motors.
I say God bless the early adopters, because if somebody's got that amount of money to spend, anytime a new technology comes out, you look at the cost of the first personal computers.
That's true.
The first flat screen TVs. They're always priced at a huge premium.
Huge price, yeah.
Those early adopters come in, they've got that large amount of disposable income. Eventually, the economies of scale kick in for the rest of us.
Wouldn't that be nice if that was the case here? We have the exact opposite. The early adopters, and as I did, I remember the first computer I bought back in the early '80s was $3,500 for something that obviously would be garbage today. No, what we have is the early adopters, who you would like to have the Lord bless, are in fact being subsidized by those who can't afford it in the form of taxes and subsidies for the union pensions, so that those early adopters get a special deal. They can buy an $80,000 vehicle, not for the $80,000 that it really costs, but for they can lease it for $5,000 for 2 years. I think that's the upside down thing. Early adopters, God bless them, if they're going to go out and they're going to pay $3,600 like I did. Certainly bless me on my computer purchase years and years ago. But it's a sad commentary, I think, that we have subsidies. And I'm not against subsidizing education. I'm not against subsidizing anything for short periods of time. But what's happened is now too much of our economy is reliant on taking money from everyone And that's not just taking cash, it's giving them potholes in the roads, in other words, not fixing the things that are critically important, or, far more importantly, making sure that they don't have real jobs when they graduate from college because the economy is so bad and government is so tight. So we're going to take a break. We will be back with the folks from the Heartland Institute.
There's
no reason to have her hanging there with babies.
Yeah. Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Sheriff John Brown come for you?
Call Bad Boys Bail Bonds. Open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll free 866-728-6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now, 866-728-6400. Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops. Or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it. You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme, salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
Well, that dadgum government's not just got its. They're not the only one who's got its pockets in our clothes. The unions, in many cases, have
pockets.
Our hands in our pockets. There we go. We all have pockets in our clothes. There we go. And welcome back to On Muskegon. Oscar Osbo, Jim Riley, myself, and with us is Sean Mullally, who's helping us out. And we've got on the phone from Chicago, down there at kind of ground zero in this very big and divisive teachers' strike from Chicago. We have Joy Pullman from the Heartland Institute, and Joy is the managing editor of, among many other things, she is the managing editor of School Reform News. So good morning, Joy. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
We're going to talk, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to focus on this big teachers' strike. We see lots of news, lots of video footage. It doesn't seem to be, at least from the folks who are striking, they don't seem to be much caring about their image. They look quite militant and, frankly, quite greedy. Can you give us a little background on what's going on right now and maybe a little history, because you are the expert on it?
Well, let's see here. Chicago is the third largest school district in the country. They have about 400,000 kids. They also have about 26,000 unionized teachers. So this is not just, there's actually another kind of suburban Chicago teachers union striking at the same time, but all eyes are on Chicago because of the magnitude of the children, the number of children impacted and the number of people taking to the streets. The negotiations that finally broke into the strike basically the strike has been coming all summer. The teachers union contract, the most recent one, ended at the end of June, and ever since then, the school district and the teachers union have been negotiating, as I imagine they are, if not at this moment, very soon. So they've been doing that all summer, and basically what happened was that the teachers union decided that the district's last best final offer was not enough, and decided to call everyone out into the streets to protest. I actually give you a few more background facts about the school district. It's highly, highly impoverished. I think it's about 87% of the kids in the district participate in the federal free and reduced lunch program, which is kind of a proxy measure for poverty. Chicago has one of the highest murder rates in the country and large amounts of teen gang warfare and violence. So there's a lot going on there, and there's also fiscally a huge amount of problems. The school district is facing in about the next 2 years a $2 billion deficit. That's out of about a $5 billion annual budget for the schools. So it's a very, very tough situation. It's obviously a volatile situation. So we've seen a lot of that come to a head in the past week.
Joy, let me ask you something, because you really struck me here. They have an annual budget of about $5 billion a year, and you say that they are on the brink of having a $2 billion deficit?
Yes. Actually, the deficit, that $2 billion figure is, I believe, just for teacher pensions, and there's a several $100 million deficit that's also related to the school's budget. I looked at their budgets for the past couple of years just to know more about the strike, and they've been basically spending more than they've been bringing in taxes for several. I mean, I looked past about the past 5 years. So I don't know how long that's been continuing, but obviously that's a severe problem, even if you just do that for 1 year with a budget of that size.
Well, you mentioned something. They're spending more than they're taking in taxes, but aren't they also getting massive subsidies from both the federal government and the state too, beyond the property taxes?
Yes. For example, the teacher pensions in Chicago are basically heavily subsidized by the rest of the state, as is the district, because it is the largest school district in Illinois. And again, because those kids are high poverty, the federal dollars flow towards high poverty districts, and so Chicago also does get a lot of federal aid.
Now, many movies, and certainly I hear comedians and others say, new talking heads on the news and all, will say on a regular basis they'll talk about the underpaid teachers and how we really need to bring teacher pay and benefits up to the norm, because everybody knows that there's aren't enough pencils and paper in class, and the poor teachers have to go out and buy all that kind of thing. And isn't maybe we ought to be paying more here? How much are these teachers as underpaid? Is that the issue? They want to get paid a fair wage?
Well, it is looking like out of the negotiations, the teachers, this is preliminary figures, are going to get about a 2% pay raise for the next 4 years, the duration of this coming contract. But they're already some of the highest paid teachers in the country. According to the teachers union, the average teacher makes about $71,000 a year before benefits.
Oh.
But for a 10-month, that's a 10-month work year. And the benefits, I think the Wall Street Journal put them at about $15,000 a year. So these teachers are making around $100,000 a year on average.
Oh, okay.
So
that goes against goes against the meme that the media has told us, in that the folks are really quite underpaid. Well, these folks are really actually, but they even though they may only work 10 months a year, don't they have a really long work day too?
Well, that's actually, when you asked about teacher pay, I was going to mention another recent study that came out that looked at that question of whether teachers are over or underpaid. And the first thing to note is that's a really hard thing to apply to all teachers everywhere, right? Because in some school districts, maybe teachers are earning less than a similar worker, with a college degree and with a similar experience. But in some districts, of course, that won't be true. Or, for example, in some fields, the math and science teachers are severely underpaid compared to what a math or science person earns in, say, an engineering field. So it really, depends on the specific teacher in the specific district. So anyway, to come to the point and answer your question, this study looked at, tried to compare teachers to comparable professionals, like a lot of similar studies had done. And I won't go through all the different ways that they adjusted it, but what they basically came out to say is that actually teachers, on average, earn about the same amount. They're not underpaid. They earn about a comparable number to, similar professional, white-collar professional in similar fields, and that their benefits actually are a lot more comfortable than professionals in comparable fields, which is pretty much to be expected given how lavish government benefits tend to be.
So what's this strike all about then? Because it doesn't appear that they're certainly underpaid enough to have a massive angry work stoppage, and of course they talk about the importance of the children, and yet the kids are now one full week without education. What's the strike all about?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I actually would my sense of it from looking at the coverage and from listening to the teachers is that it's actually not so much about pay and benefits, although teachers are going to get better pay and benefits, it looks like, as a result of the negotiations. I really think that I believe the teachers and the union leader, the CTU president, is named Karen Lewis, and she's made a number of statements along with a lot of the union officials that they're not really striking about pay and benefits, but they're really striking over ideology or philosophy. And so what the teachers union believes is that the union represents a certain set of ideas, and those are anti-capitalist ideas, those are anti-market ideas, those are, my own take, of course, they wouldn't say this, is that they're anti-democratic ideas, and here's the reason why. The union is very angry about a number of measures that the Chicago mayor has tried to bring to the Chicago public schools.
Now, this is let me just clarify that the Chicago mayor is Democrat Rahm Emanuel, who has been on of course, I believe he was President Clinton's or President Obama's chief of staff. He is an he was a Democrat congressman in that area also, and he's now the mayor of Chicago.
Right. Chicago is very heavily Democratic, and yes, of course, the mayor is Democratic. So that is another ironic twist: is that Democrat against Democrat, and so basically, the fight is showing there's kind of an inter-Democrat dispute that is breaking out into the open, and it's over very hard left types like the union, which say, for example, they don't like Mayor Emanuel's ideas that have brought in some new schools to the city, which incidentally have stayed open through the strike. Those are called charter schools. Those are public schools. They're completely public, but they're run independently, and sometimes they're run by private organizations. So you hear the teachers union complain about the privatization of public schools. You've had some of that in Michigan, I've read.
Yes.
You have folks complain about outsourcing public schools, about bringing competitive ideas to the public sphere. So I really think that according to what they're saying themselves, the union is angry about people who are trying to bring a sense of a sane market to bear on the bloated and the really top-heavy and the expensive and the failing. We haven't even talked about how poorly the schools are failing. The failing Chicago school system.
Well, let me ask you a couple questions just about this failure, because I think that, like you just said, there are two real issues. One is how much is it costing us? I mean, let's compare it with a vehicle. Let's just say that you were paying $30,000 for a new vehicle. That might be a lot, might be a little, depending on your situation. But if you had a fabulous car that lasted you 20 years and didn't, got great mileage and everything else, it'd be a wonderful deal. But if it broke down 60% of the time, or in this case, let's make it 40% of the time, you might say, well, geez, that's $30,000 is too much for that vehicle. Now, I'm seeing that from some of the statistics out there that only 60% of the children graduate from high school on average in the Chicago public system, but also that I saw a statistic that really staggered me, was that something in the neighborhood of 15 or certainly well under 20% of those students were reading at their age level. And so we know that sadly in too many of our large city school systems that even the degree, the diploma that you get, in many cases does not even give you the basic skills of reading, writing, and arithmetic necessary to even have a hope of getting a job. And that seems to be the case here, that not only are they well paid in the Chicago school system, well compensated, the average in that area, I guess, income is in the neighborhood of $40,000. But they're really doing a horrible disservice to these young people.
Right. Well, and that's another thing that the union has complained about. And there are some things to be said for their complaint, which is, we have to deal with some extremely tough kids, right? Like I mentioned, gang violence, huge preponderance of broken families, which is, one of the leading contributors to kids having a terrible academic record. The kids really, a lot of parents don't feed their kids, or, who knows what house they're sleeping at on different nights. So those teachers, I mean, I don't, let's not prevaricate. Those teachers are facing some very difficult fields.
Not an easy job.
No, it's not an easy job. And you're right, though. So that I would think would merit some pretty good compensation for a teacher to step in there, and to actually take a kid from that sort of, the terrible, situation, very little background, little conversation going on in the home besides TV. And teach the child, some of the beauties of learning, and help set that kid on a path to a productive life as a citizen.
But wouldn't that compensation?
But that's not happening.
Yeah. Wouldn't the compensation again go with my maybe crummy little car analogy? But wouldn't that compensation be warranted if, in fact, they were succeeding at this very challenging and tough job? And if they're not succeeding, then one would say, well, wait a minute, why are we going to continue doing the same thing? But another question that I've had is, and I hear this all the time from the teachers' unions' heads, and that is that we are facing things that we have no control over. We cannot educate these children because of the social pathologies that you just outlined. But if that's the case, if they cannot do it, then shouldn't they say, okay, but maybe somebody else is going to try something new. We'll let them give it a try. I mean, what bothers me so much and frightens me that the American public seems to have bought into this is that in many cases the teachers' unions have said, look, we can't educate these kids. It's impossible. We're given a challenge that is impossible for us, but we're not going to let anybody else try something else.
That's a really good point. One of my favorite things to think is, okay, so if you absolutely can't do anything with these kids, why are we sending them to school at all?
How do they respond to that? And has anybody approached that? One of the talking heads about that?
No, usually what you will tend to hear is we need more money, we need more resources in the classroom, we need smaller class sizes, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact is that those are all, they would sound good, but the problem is that they've been tried elsewhere and shown, first of all, shown that it doesn't actually improve student learning. And then the thing is, you're mentioning about, all these folks coming and trying to have better ideas, is that a lot of other people are able to actually do amazing things with the same population of disadvantaged kids and for less money.
How does some of that...
Really about, So it's not really about, money. It's not about motivation. It's really about the fact that the structure of education in Chicago and many cities is such that it actually hurts the education of children. It's not aligned in the way that would actually, take kids from, minus 10 and bring them up to, maybe, a 50% or anything that's positive for the kids.
Now, how does some of that play into what's been at dispute in this contract negotiation? You told us a little bit about some of the financial things with the, it looks like they've settled on a 2% raise, and I know that if you're quoting them at $100,000 a year, that's a different situation than we see here in West Michigan. I know both my parents were teachers, and when they retired out, they were at maybe half that. My mother had a master's degree, so that's a different environment apparently than what you're describing. But when it comes to teacher evaluation, as far as what those criteria are, and including student performance in that. Now, has that been something that's been at dispute?
Oh, yes. That's one of the central issues at dispute. So we've talked about how, we're paying these teachers a lot of money but not really getting any results. And so the idea that the mayor had, which is one that a lot of states have been adopting across the country, actually it's been pushed by President Obama and his education secretary, Arne Duncan. Basically, states have adopted it at their behest to try to win some federal money. So democratic idea, democratic policy is to say, okay, so we're giving you lots of money, and what we basically want to do is measure if a child improves academically while he's in a certain teacher's classroom. And that, of course, again, is something that the teachers union really, that's a non-starter for them. It's unfair to measure teachers according to their performance and according to the most important thing that they're supposed to do, which is educate children. Is that
just the Chicago way, or is that a universal belief within most of the education union establishment?
No, it's the latter. There are a couple of union locals that have participated in creating some systems for measuring teachers objectively, but by and large, unions don't want to have anything to do with measuring teachers objectively. They prefer a system which is the one that Illinois has currently, which basically creates a system in which 1% of teachers are ever rated unsatisfactory because it's based on self-evaluations, such as, principal coming in and looking at a teacher for 1 hour, maybe once every 3 years.
Let me just, if I might, just for a moment here, I'm older than the group of folks here, and since I know that you have, Joy, you have 2 young children, I most certainly am older than you are. But I remember when I was in a couple of very, very good school systems, and they didn't have the problems and the challenges that certainly Chicago has. But at the beginning of every year, we took tests. What a concept. And they called them achievement tests. And at the beginning, we all took them, and then we took them at the end of the year. And those tests were gone over with by teachers and parents and students. So the kids got the results of those tests, and then we brought them home to our parents. This concept that I know that the teachers' unions are screaming bloody murder about today, which is, we're teaching to the test and how awful that isn't some kind of newfangled, from Mars concept. We've been doing this for years, and everyone who was in my school, and I imagine everyone in this room and most of us out there who are listening, we kids knew who the good teachers were and who the awful teachers were. And I've got many teacher friends, and every one of them can tell me they could easily list from top to bottom the best teachers.
There's also the cool teacher and the good teacher. That's a whole different thing.
If you had the kids make a cool list, they could do that too. But they could also make a list. Matter of fact, the teacher that I can still recall, a gentleman named Mr. Van Drott, always wore a bow tie, very dour, dry man. I got the worst grades I've ever gotten in math, which was my best thing. And I recall that I went into him after I had done miserably on an exam, and because I was very bad at arithmetic, adding and subtracting, and because I was very sloppy about it, because I had always gotten partial or most credit for showing that you can, I know how to do it, I just didn't get the right answer. And he says, well, this is math. If you get the wrong answer, you're going to get an F. And not surprisingly, it didn't take too long for me to realize that the arithmetic and the addition and subtraction wasn't all that challenging. I spent a little more time at it, and I ultimately got good grades. But the toughest teachers, who may not be the coolest, students can certainly pick them out, and most certainly other teachers know who the good teachers are. I mean, if you find a teacher who says, no, I can't tell the difference between any of the other teachers in my school, that's the teacher I'd like to fire, because that's just not true.
There's also, though, the good teachers that teach the students that want to be taught. The students that don't want to be taught, a lot of those good teachers will just let them go to the wayside. I've seen that happen, too.
Well, that's true, and that's a different, yes, and as a matter of fact, that's an excellent point, because that's a different kind of a challenge, and certainly one that's greater here in Chicago.
I can't deal with this kid. He goes to the side. We'll just deal with the kids.
Well, and how is that situation going to maybe get exacerbated if you're not careful in constructing these objective measurements, and your teacher's performance review and then compensation is based on student performance? Will those teachers then just gravitate towards not only the best students but the best school districts, and then the most difficult to teach students are left with the teachers that nobody else wants?
Right.
Is that going to?
Well, that's a very good question. How do you address that, Joy?
Yeah, that is a good question, and that's the reason why a lot of the people who are conservatives, who generally support measuring teachers at least partially objectively, also support a lot of limits on doing so. So we're not saying 100%, you rise or fall based on your student test scores. You overwhelmingly hear, okay, it should be something, it should be a factor. So in Chicago, they're arguing about making it worth 1/4 of a teacher's evaluation. I've heard, basically, folks will go up to about 50%, but not usually go to have that be the majority of a teacher's evaluation. And then what they want to do is look at that data over a period of time, not just 1 year, because you could have a fluke year, you could have a bad year, you could have just a bad testing year. So to look at it over at least 3 years of time, and so where the teacher also has some time to say, oh, goodness, I had a bad year, what happened here, and talk to his or her principal about that.
Well, now, who is pushing this concept?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, there are a lot of it's actually really well supported by both Republicans and Democrats. President Obama and his team are, like I mentioned, huge on the idea of including test scores in teacher evaluations. But a lot of Republican state houses across the country have approved those sorts of measures. So it's really a bipartisanly supported idea.
We're running out of time here, Joy, and appreciate your expertise. What's going to happen? My understanding from looking at the Chicago Tribune this morning is that it looks like they're going to settle this. Is the net result, I don't care about the pay and anything else, is the net result of this going to be that the kids in this school system are going to have a better chance of getting educated going forward, or is it going to be the same old, same old?
Yeah, that's, of course, the most important question, and it's very hard to know that without knowing the details. But like you mentioned, I looked at what's coming out about the contract. To me, it basically seems like a wash. It is very easy, especially when you have entrenched interest, for them to play the system, and there's a lot of things that apparently got shunted off into more secret negotiations. The most contentious subjects are basically, we'll talk about that over the next couple of months. So we're not even going to know what happened for a while, it looks like. So my gut reaction is this is basically a lot of smoke over very little gained or lost. I'm guessing that this is at a standstill, which is really a problem for the kids of Chicago, because the kids of Chicago are in a desperate situation, and teachers are one of the three central items that contribute or reduce a child's success in school. It's teachers, curriculum, and home life. And if kids don't have the home life, and who knows what kind of curriculum they're getting, and if their teachers, are not, if we don't know that they're consistently getting good teachers, what hope do those little kids have of joining the rest of us and becoming our neighbors one day?
Well, we've had a school system here in Muskegon County that just went bankrupt, and of course, money is another issue there too. But we've got to take a break. Thank you so much, Joy. Be a great mom, which I'm sure you are to your kids, and thank you so much for keeping up the fight on behalf of the children. So hopefully, we'll have you back. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme, salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops. Or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it? You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Sheriff John Brown come for you?
Call Bad Boys Bail Bonds, open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll free 866-728-6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now, 866-728-6400.
Dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you
Oh, they don't just have their hands in every pocket of our clothes, so they've got their fist in the face of the children. And unfortunately, here in Chicago anyway, and certainly in some other places in the state of Michigan, we have a big union with inordinately well-paid employees whose apparently sole interest is in the union itself, and certainly not in the children.
Did I understand her right? Did she say that teachers there get paid $40,000 a year?
No. The average. This is the average now. Okay. Think about
this. I see
this.
40,000 in Chicago. You couldn't make it. I wouldn't.
No.
think.
No, I believe she was talking about the median income.
No,
okay.
That's the
All right.
median income
Okay.
in Chicago. No, the average in the teachers is a little bit over $71,000.
Oh, okay.
a year.
That's
an
more like
average,
it, yeah.
and that's cash. It does not include benefits. And I believe that she was incorrect when she said that the benefits amounted to about $15,000 a year. It's significantly higher than that.
You would think so, yeah.
Well, in Muskegon County, just the health benefits for an employee are over $10,000 generally, and teachers, of course, have not just health benefits when they're working, but they have health benefits the moment that they retire, and they have, of course, very, very comfortable pensions. I don't know what their particular situation is, but in Chicago, which is kind of an interesting place for this to be happening, some of my best friends, husband and wife, are both retired teachers from the Illinois area, and they they are very concerned with the safety of this Illinois Teachers Pension Fund, because it is the most underfunded in the United States. And my friend who taught for, I believe he retired at about 55, so he taught for, I think, maybe 32, 33 years. Mm-hmm. He is in retirement making $93,000 a year. And he's certainly happy to get it. But he's aware that can't continue on forever without somebody. Someone's going to have to pick it up.
And I can tell you, I'm a lot less familiar with the Chicago situation. I'm actually not familiar at all. But I do have both my parents retired from teaching at Muskegon Public, and those figures are not what you see around here.
Well, I actually, around here, I don't know what the numbers are. But one thing that you always know, if somebody's overpaid or underpaid, mm-hmm. it's very clear. If you post a job and you get multiple numbers of folks who are qualified to do the job, you know that you're paying too much. It's as simple as that. If you years and years ago, I owned a marina, and let's just say we had 100 slips. If all of our slips were full, we knew that we were undercharging for our slips. You needed to have one empty slip in order to do that. So, but I don't want to get into the pay side of it. But I do. I was glad to disabuse this notion of these poor, hardworking, underpaid teachers. They're not underpaid. They're paid very nicely. Certainly, they're all college graduates. If there were more higher paid jobs out there, they certainly could avail themselves of them. But the most important thing that we've got to face here, because it's not what they get paid. It's not even the fact that maybe they're going to go bankrupt. That's a separate issue. But it is a question of the children, and are they getting the education that they need? I mean, time and again, one of the reasons that you go into a McDonald's today or any fast food operation, and you, if you get a chance, look around and you'll see the cash register doesn't have numbers on it. It has pictures of hamburgers and stuff, because the young people can't even do the simplest arithmetic.
And that's what I was saying about earlier. I've got 7 kids, so I got a little bit of a. They're all graduated. They're all out of school. All these kids teach differently in their own way. They were, some of them I graduated, with honors, blah blah blah, this and that. Some of them went back to school. I have 3 of them right now that I went back to school, but they all learned from the same teachers in the Whitehall School District. So they all learn differently. Now, I guess the question is with these 7 kids of mine, I know that they learn differently. So why can't we come up with some teachers that teach the kids that are pretty much easy to teach, that are there to learn, there to find out, and the kids that aren't there to learn?
I think that's a great question.
There was a class before that I was sending my kids earlier. I was sending them to a private school. And they couldn't take care of one of my kids because he had a little learning disability. So they had to send him to a different school, which didn't do any good. So that didn't work, and that was the Muskegon Heights school system. But anyway,
I think you hit on that it is complex, because kids aren't widgets, and
Right.
if you've got someone working in a factory making widgets, it's very easy to evaluate them based on the quality of those widgets that come out because they made them.
Yeah.
Kids are individuals with free will. They have home environments, and we talked about this a little bit with our guest, in that
And personalities.
yes.
Their own beliefs.
every personality is different levels of motivation towards education. So an individual student's educational outcomes is a result of certain things the teacher does, and also a whole lot of other things in that kid's life in the community.
Right.
And
But shouldn't the teachers focus? I mean, I don't see any teachers union people standing up and saying, we have to change our culture. We have to do something about people who are encouraged never to work, who are not penalized by dropping out of school, who in fact get checks and all sorts of free food, free the subsidized rent and everything else. In other words, if they do all the negative things, we're going to benefit them. So I don't hear anybody in the teachers unions running around saying, hey, we need to change the culture. So fair enough. That's not their responsibility.
They're standing up with some things they're saying very loudly, though. And one thing is that in the most troubled school districts, they're often getting the fewest resources.
Well, we just as an example, we just found out that just isn't true. As a matter of fact, in the most troubled district, perhaps in the country, the Chicago School District, they're getting the most resources. They're getting paid they're the third highest paid teachers in terms of resources, which of course is Democrat talk for money. They're getting paid. They're getting more money per child than any other school district other than say.
Well, what I was saying,
well, that's not the school budget.
Yeah, because I've seen
the teachers are just taking the money. They haven't given it.
Right.
They haven't transferred it into the resources that you suggest might be beneficial to the children.
Yeah, what I'm thinking of is at the Michigan level, like, for example, we have going back all the way to our Proposal A setup, and we just saw Muskegon Heights fail, and for years they were, and other schools in their situation, getting less per pupil funding from the state.
That's just not true.
That's
just not true.
Districts like West Bloomfield.
No. As a matter of fact, Muskegon Heights on per student funding total. Now, if you break it down, because funding comes in every school system, comes from a variety of different areas.
Okay.
Per student funding, Muskegon Heights and Muskegon are very, very close to the top in the state of Michigan. Detroit, I believe, is the highest. We know that almost every one of the city schools in terms, and it's in the neighborhood. I know in Muskegon, I had a list. I believe it was around $12,000. I think Detroit was around $13,000 per child. There is a myth that's been perpetuated that, in fact, funding per student's gone down. It just flat out has not. Matter of fact, it's gone up like crazy, along with the cost of teachers. But again, I don't want to talk about the funding side if I can. What I'd like to do is to say that if the teachers have said, and they continually, the teachers' unions are saying that we can't educate these kids because they've got all these social pathologies. As Joy said from the Heartland Institute, that these kids, the parents or the parent, even the parent doesn't stay in the same house. It's a horribly destructive culture that these children are coming from. Okay, they're saying they can't fix the kids. Okay, I give the credit. Then why can we not move the kids, those kids that they can't educate, into another system? Why can't there be a choice, school choice? I think Oscar's point is extraordinarily well taken. You've got a whole bunch of kids that you know intimately, they're your children, and in fact, some learn very differently than others, even though same mom and dad, same school system. So where are the teachers saying, let's have a brainstorming session to answer the question rather than say they're unteachable? Because that's the only answer I'm hearing.
But there are some special classes out there. What I was trying to say was there were some special classes out there, and then one of my children went to this special class and did not learn from that class.
But so do you give up?
Yeah.
But do you give up?
No,
or
I don't say, okay, you don't give up.
That didn't work. I mean, there's little
and that's
question.
when I moved to a different school system. But what I'm saying is that's
you created your own school choice.
Right.
You had the wherewithal and the ability to move. Now I see this because I live near Mona Shores High School, and this is an anecdote, but I just thought this was interesting. We now have, of course, the sad collapse of the Muskegon Heights School District, and we have all these parents who do care. And I don't know if you've ever been to a school board meeting where they have the lottery for schools of choice. I mean, when when parents are there quite often with their children, and when they don't get picked, when they didn't get that lottery because there's a limited number of deals, they pull it out of the hat, actually, almost like a lottery. Some of the kids and some of the parents are actually crying.
Right.
But there's a drive. This is long before, by the way, the Heights fully closed. The parents want the ability to move their children to the school that's best for them. And as Oscar has said, not every child is the same. So
I had to move to Moore Shores to get that school district. But
okay.
Yeah, okay.
Well, and so in other words, there are some same kids that can't be taught. The teachers' unions tell us, oh, these kids can't be taught. I mean, what should we put them into a gulag? No, they can be taught. They just can't be taught in the way that they're being taught.
Right.
And give the parents and give society in this country an opportunity to move them. But this is just a little anecdote, but I just thought, boy, times have changed. And I know I'm an Andy Griffith, Opie type of guy. But I was coming to work on the Talk Muskegon show, and there was this extraordinarily attractive young gal with, the legs up to the top of the room kind of thing. But she had...
Tina Turner was out there?
This gal would have beaten Tina Turner. And she was a teenager. I mean, she was under 18, I would imagine. She had short shorts on that were, almost a bathing suit bottom. And she was walking to school. And I'm thinking, and this is Mona Shores. One of the things that's critical when you get a job, if everybody's sitting around, walking in thongs and and muscle shirts and whatever, it's a different attitude and different environment than if especially the boss and the people who are trying to create something are dressed in suits or at least appropriate attire.
Especially with all the young hormones flying around there.
And it's an entirely different issue when you've got the young hormones, exactly. And I don't know, I would hope, but this wasn't the first day of school. I would hope that Mona Shores would have sat down with this young lady and said, "Hey, look, this is not appropriate." I don't know, but certainly if you stand outside certain schools within Muskegon County, even forget Chicago, you're going to see that there's a problem.
Do you think that's a good thing to do in schools? Is do a dress code? Just have a certain dress that they had to wear, just like the Catholic schools.
Well, there's uniforms as opposed to dress code. We had a dress code in school. You don't need uniforms. I mean, I'm not against uniforms, but a dress code, again, the problem, one of the most important things that you can teach a young person beyond the reading, writing, arithmetic is that there are rules in society. You don't show up for your first job in a bathing suit and flip-flops, which we've heard, these horrible stories of employers telling us these things. You show up on time. I know that we all, who was our favorite teacher? He was the teacher who let the kids come in class late, that we joked the whole time. We didn't have hard tests. That might be your favorite teacher, but you didn't make the mistake of thinking he was your best teacher. And again, Mona Shores is one of the better schools, and I would imagine certainly in the state. And I'm sure that they're doing the right thing. But Oscar, how much time do we have before the next break?
Well, we should be taking a break here, but anyway.
Okay. Well, why don't we take a break? I'd like to come back because I did a junior achievement kind of a thing in Muskegon Heights schools many years ago, and I'd like to just recount that when we come back.
Okay.
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Sheriff John Brown come for you?
Call Bad Boys Bail Bonds. Open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll free 866-728-6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now 866-728-6400.
Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops. Or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it. You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
Government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hams in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you got...
Oh, those government folks, no matter what color, be they red or blue or any other color out there, rainbow, they want our money and they want power, and they're not going to give up. But here at On Muskegon, we're going to at least try to expose it for what it is. I promised, and I'm sure you're all waiting with bated breath here, waiting for me to recount my little experience, but I have been in the past a big brother, and I was also involved in Junior Achievement's project business, which was really fun. I was able to, once a week for an hour, I went into a junior high class. In my case, I went to a very well managed junior high class. A great teacher, you could tell. He had total control of the students. Actually, after a little bit of time, there was a different teacher who was not nearly as good control. But so I had that as much an experience, I guess, as you can get without being a teacher or a parent, but just to see how kids act in school. But before that, I was able to put on a little presentation where I had a movie and this kind of thing that was done by, I think it was actually under the old New Muskegon days. This is back in the 80s. And I went into a class in Muskegon Heights. It was a junior high class also. And I had contacted the teacher, and I was going to talk about essentially capitalism kind of things, the importance of an education and the kind of jobs that are available when you graduate from high school. And I had spoken with the teacher in advance, parked in the parking lot, went up to the classroom, and class was in session, so I waited outside. Bell rang, just like it did when I was a kid. All the kids came out. And the teacher, I believe it was a science class that for some reason, I think it was a science class or perhaps math. A gentleman in his 30s, a black gentleman, and really well-dressed. He had a coat and tie on. You could tell he was a very bright and caring man. And we started, chatting, and immediately, at least I immediately liked him, and I was looking forward to doing the class. Well, as we're talking, I'm kind of looking around, and there's nobody in the classroom. Well, the bell rang, which back when I was in school, you had to be in your desk and ready to go. And it was just the two of us who were still in the classroom. And he said, "Oh, excuse me." And he went out into the hall, and I kind of followed him out. And all of the teachers were in the hallway, and they were kind of shooing their kids into the class, into their various classes. And this took a good 10 minutes by the time the kids got into the classroom, sat down, and settled down. Again, these are junior high kids. They don't settle down that quickly. And from there, I was able to give my presentation, and away I went. But it occurred to me that these young kids were getting an education that was the exact opposite of what they should have been getting. Number one, they were missing around 10 minutes every hour of education that the kids in Mona Shores or Whitehall or other places were getting. And maybe of equal importance, if not perhaps even more important, they were being taught that 9 o'clock, 9:10, 9:15 is the same thing as 9 o'clock. They were not being taught some of the basic life lessons that I learned, and I know that you guys learned, and I imagine most of us who are listening out in Radio Land learned, in that, especially when you're dealing with the people above you, people who you want to please at some point, be it an employer or maybe a spouse or friends, or certainly in the education world, they were being taught that being on time doesn't matter.
Well, not only not being on time, but also seeing how much they can get away with.
Yeah. You can tell there were some of those kids, of course, were the last ones to get in, and I'm sure that they were probably the last ones to get in every single time. And I thought, my golly, here's, especially this is a minority community here. And you can imagine when you've got a young person who's maybe done fairly well in school and they graduate and they get their diploma and they go to their first job, maybe they're 16, 17, maybe 18, like we all did. And the guy at the McDonald's or whatever, the manager there says, well, be here at 9 o'clock, and you show up at 9:15 and he doesn't hire you. And you think, well, why didn't I get hired? And you don't really understand that it's because you showed up late. I think that's an issue that maybe it's a picayune, worthless
I'll go back
issue.
to work in about a minute or so. Just give me a couple minutes here. I'll be fine.
Well,
go back to work.
These are life lessons. They don't cost anything to teach. When teachers dress professionally,
those are union jobs, aren't they? The people that say, "What can I get away with?"
Well, sometimes they are. I know we do have a situation here. We're one of the largest employers in the county. One of the leaders, one of the executives of that company, has said that they have in Muskegon County, they have a very serious problem trying to get employees into their company who can pass a drug test and who have a high school diploma. And that's a cultural problem. Think about it. We have one of the highest true unemployment rates in the state, and there are jobs that are begging because we do have this cultural problem. I would very much. I understand the challenges, at least to a certain extent, of what the teaching profession faces, and I just wish that they would sit down and I know the teachers themselves really care about this. It appears to be the union leadership that is not. But sit down and say, okay, look, we've got these 10%, 20%, maybe it's 40% kids that are not learning. What can we do? The response is always, we need more money. And if you just look back at go back 5 years and 10 years and 20 years and 30 years, the amount per student spent is straight up. And actually, I'm gonna find this. I'm gonna show it to Sean, and I'm gonna put it on I Am Muskegon. Hey, we are getting close to the end of the show. One thing I want to remind people again, I still am at Carmen's Cafe almost every Tuesday and Thursday, usually the first 6 of the month. But when the county commission has its meetings, I'm at Carmen's Cafe right downtown Muskegon, the corner of Clay and Jefferson. I get there usually around 2 o'clock. And I'm there till about 3:15. If you're interested in talking about politics at any level, certainly show up. Let me know. Of course, I do post this show online at eyeonmuskegon.com. That's EYE on Muskegon, and that's all one word. Usually Sunday afternoon, so you can listen to it on your smartphone or your computer, any place you want to listen to it. As we said earlier, we are on Comcast TV, 8 to 9:30 every Monday night.
And you're in the TV guide, but you're in the TV guide wrong, too.
We are on the TV guide in there. And Sean, you are now, just give us a quick, before we go, your TV show?
Muskegon in Motion on MCC TV on Comcast and Charter. That's Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays.
At what time?
5:30 or 8:30.
5:30 or 8:30, okay. And guys, thank you, Oscar. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Joy Pullman of the Heartland Institute, all you wonderful listeners and viewers out there in Muskegon land. Next Sunday, we will be back. I Am Muskegon will be back as we continue our quest to expose what the power brokers and the big spenders don't want you to know. Hey, stay tuned for Tom Sanaki's Polka Melodies. Always makes you feel good after listening to us. And that's the happy piece. Hope you have a great week in our little piece of heaven. Next week, folks, we will put the eye on you, Muskegon.